joining me. The whole time I'm trying to like actually looking different something to whatever. And by the end of it, I'm like, wow, because I can't actually go into detail or compare anything that I'm actually learning. Leaving me with a very, very vital illusion of that studying anything is going to end up making you feeling very raw. Like, this might be a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, or like very smart and stuff, but all this stuff that I find very interesting is ending up being so fucking useless. Until I have the mentality of something that I carry with me everywhere I go, and that is simply just that put the stuff together, put it in together Frankenstein style, into a piece of art or into something, a complete something, put everything together into something, put all the pieces together and create something. And so let's listen to some black metal music. It's time. It's time for a retake, a recap, another glance or another look here at episode 92. And I think I see where there's a couple. So this subject, and this we're on Spotify right now, and we're gonna listen to the audio. Actually, no, this is a video. This is a video version available on Spotify. I I guess evidently that's not something everybody has. And I need to say something about this too, because lest I be ungrateful or things like that, but I'd rather just get back on the subject. So that's what I'm going to do. And so here it is, the subject. The subject matter of episode 92 it's very complex and complicated and just a tad bit confusing. So I've just finished dispelling a myth. I've just finished, before that, I've also just finished establishing where I stand on a very pertinent political view. Now it's time to dispel something going on in my world, in the world of Mickey GemInEye, and here specifically on the Vault of Doom podcast. I want to remind you to subscribe. Hit that bell so you'll be notified of future episodes as well, and do comment to let me know how I'm doing if you feel so inclined. Oh, it rhymed again. I'm done. I can't have it. I can't have any more rhyming going on. If you feel so inclined, there's my tip jar right there. On the support the show section of the show notes. So let me try and do this without making it more complexifying. And instead, that's not the correct way to speak. Let me try to do this without further complexifying. Oh, here's the way I wanted to say it. Let me try to do this without adding any further complexity. So, the subject of 92 is contrasting two previous episodes. Those previous two episodes were one on an ancient Irish tradition, an ancient Celtic tradition, and the other one is on the scientific practice of Satanism. And what I was doing was contrasting the two. With the ancient Celtic tradition, what I used was specific text, and that text being the Mabinogion, and it's actually originates in Wales. Studying it, having a lot of fun studying it, getting in touch with my heritage, getting in touch with my ancestry. That's what I wanted to speak on. That's what I wanted to say. That's what makes me feel a whole hell of a lot better about creating episodes and then putting them out. As it's in my heritage. However, what comes up immediately after saying that is all this 23andMe shit and all this scientific shit. Well, you would owe that and accredit that to Satanism and the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple and the various different chapters and such. So what I'm able to do about that is speak on it and then go from there. But again, just a quick reminder, I see where I was going with these recaps, because there's really only
1 or 2 or even 3 other episodes where I did a recap about, I did a recap on, and I see where I was going with that, because I did the recap. That must have been kind of similar to what I'm doing right now, sort of my feelings about it, how I actually feel about it, or something like that. And then it didn't do it. It kind of stole and robbed me of the what a recap even actually is, or another look at it is providing and remembering and memorizing and inculcating some of the reference points for what I was trying to say, or what I was getting at. However, I think this episode that we're going to be doing an actual recap on and an actual referencing of is probably running over an hour. So this is going to be coming into a couple segments. So I'll do the initial segment and we're going to listen to it. I'm going to listen, what this is, I'm going to listen to one of my own episodes and then comment on it as I go along. And that's horrible. That's horrible that I should have to do that, because it seems like the recap that I did, and I literally, let me remind you why, the only reason why I even want to do this in the first place is because as I was synchronizing Spotify, and in the synchronization process, this one got left behind, where all these episodes were missing from Spotify. I finished my synchronization, and this one got left behind. So I guess, as a bit of a troll that we all can tend to be from time to time, I got to sit here and overanalyze and focus in and zero in on basically bullying this episode. But it's no mistake. This episode is, and the content that is, its subject is very complex. I'm contrasting something modern with something ancient. So something good should come from it, and if it doesn't, I don't know, whatever. Then it doesn't, but it will. Something good will come from it. So, now define good. Well, this isn't luckily going to go into too much philosophical connotations. I think what I'll have on this is to be seen. We shall see. But here, looking at the show notes, I don't have any real details on here. I just have, like, I know what song is going to be on it, what link that you can go to check out and stuff, but I'm contrasting here on this episode, and then what I'm doing on here is referencing on it to myself. I'm actually publishing the episode and recording a whole new episode on this, and then publishing it due to what I think ultimately, I'll just go ahead and come outright and say it right now. I think that what this episode is a fluke and a glitch in the matrix, and it's an error on how I arrange my topics, where I'm arranging topics and somehow it floats in there by accident to fucking sit over here and go over this another time. However, as crazy and babbling as that sounds, this is the third time that I will be going over this contrast. It's the third time. The time before that, in the episode we're going to be looking at right now, is the contrast of the modern with the ancient. And it won't be a generally speaking context. It'll be specifically these things, not general anything. This won't be a generalized discussion. And previously to that, the other episode that has a recap is where I did the interview with a pastor. I interviewed a pastor, and then I did another episode out after that for a recap of it, where I did a recap on how I felt about it, what were my thoughts on that, and then on top of that, invited him on again for his recap, where he sat holding his Bible and read some scripture and things like that, and then so that was like lumped into the same category, lumped together. That's the first start of it. The second, literally all three of those episodes is the first start of it. The second is the contrast. And so I think while I'm doing this, I think I'm trying to figure this out myself. It's so confusing. However, the content and the substance therein is existent. So, in the second portion, I think that's what this episode is. I think that's what this should be. If I'm not mistaken about my own content, then I think that's what this should be. Is me contrasting the modern with the traditional with and heads up too, I think I go off on this one. I think I was kind of frustrated when I recorded this. But I'm contrasting it with that ancient Welsh text. And what I'm doing here on this episode, as I think that it is I'm comparing the ancient Welsh text with the book written by the actual pastor, who made a guest appearance on my show. And that's might leave your head spinning. That's a head-spinningly high volume of brainstorming, sort of, and trying to figure out what this is. But the confusion that's still there is, I think, that I contrasted twice. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with the actual content of the episode here, what I'm trying to say here. What this is I'm mentioning is I'm trying to discern and utilize discrepancy between the I contrasted. Here's what I have done. Here's what I did. Here's what I actually did. I contrasted the Mabinogi with the narrow path written by the pastor featured on my show, as one is Christian and the other is not pagan, but is a provided text among the pagan community. Something like that. I think crying out loud. Here's what I think. That seemed fair, but I have to cap it off nicely here. The Mabinogi is not pagan. It's a sort of fairy tale. So it's a fairy tale. It has mythical creatures. It has a lot of symbolic meaning, and it is analyzed among scholars. It's something that a scholar would read. And in the episode, I've already mentioned my history in it. My history in researching this ancient Welsh text. That I literally drove to a historical society, or the Irish American Heritage Center of my nearest major metropolitan area, and asked about this text because I was so intrigued and so enthralled when I initially found out about it. I went in here and I went into their ancient library where they have all the really, really old books, and I was like, I've got a very rare text that I need you to find. And you have this, and it was a magical experience. I could relive it again and again. That he was like, hold on, let me check. I don't know. So he goes to check, and then the waiting in between that was so painstakingly brutal that I was like, oh my God, is he going to have it? Is he not going to have it? Is he going to have it? I don't know. And then he did, and so he pulled out this old, tattered, torn, ancient fucking book. And I read it, and I took notes, and then I probably wrote some poetry about it that I lost from all the traveling. Anyhow, nonetheless, the book's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale. It's welcomed among the pagan community, though it is not pagan in and of itself. It carries symbolic meaning that can be applied to any given principality. Now, what is this episode that we'll be looking at, actually, then? Is this the contrast between the narrow path of the Mabinogian, or is this the contrast between the Satanic Temple of Chicago and Druidry? Obad. Order of Bards Elevates the Druids versus the Satanic Temple of Chicago. If I had to take a wild guess right before pressing play, I would have to say that I think that that's what it is. So let's get into it. I got a bit of an introduction to there. That I'm listening. An intro show here, likely an introduction for the show. This is a very old episode. It's unlikely whether the introduction is as long as they are now. I just have the whole interface. That's the last two episodes. So what the episode is, immediately upon taking a look, I can tell you what we're in for. The previous episode to this one we're looking at was Druidry. The previous episode before that was Satanism. This episode combines the previous two episodes and goes into something. Now I can commentate. Now I can speculate. I'm not going to put you through the music video that's in the introduction. I'm going to fast forward all of that. While that video is finished up, I'll comment on song. It should be given that with this genre, everything's chaotic, everything's a mess. Or any genre, because I need to have a little generalized. I need to be in touch with my generally speaking slightly. Even just slightly. Everybody's chaotic, right? But that is, as I said, that's it for what I think is the intro. I don't like when I feature my music on here. I don't know what exact version is going to be on there. It's always something very different, and that is something it's like. It's nice when I comment on it from time to time because that is the whole song, and then I cut it off. I cut off the whole song. So I wasn't aware that I did that. I wasn't aware of having done that because normally when I feature that song, what I'm featuring is the introduction. And that's the whole song with a portion of the first verse in there, as the introduction doesn't have any actual lyrics in it, just like the chorus. Anyway, enough commenting on the song. Let's get into what I'm saying here. So here's where the discernment and the discrepancy being made is so crucial, because we don't want to bring the pastor into any of this at all, other than having merely mentioned him for the sake of the discerning, for the sake of separating him from anything that has to do with any of this. What's up with the can of worms? Let's can of worms. International Can of Worms Day. Yay! Okay, enough cane of worms emoji. The non-Christian nature of Satanism is based on that they're a political entity, that there's politically involved. They address political issues such as pro-choice and LGBTQ, and they don't focus much on being anti-Christian, as it would seem. I'm taking on a huge, massive, heavy load, I feel, from mentioning that, so I'll probably just kind of dust around the edges a little bit. I'm your sexy French maid, dusting your trophies, or whatever. And so they're not anti-Christian, but that's a ridiculous thing, and that's a ridiculous thing to say. It's just under the context, when you're speaking under the context, that is how it is said. But it just to say that to anybody then, or to say that to somebody and then have them say, "But that's ridiculous. Of course they are," or something like that. It's like, yes, you have a place to speak on that. If I'm prepared to speak on that, or if we could get the general context out of the way, whatever state of the world once again. Uh, but anything pagan and anything based in paganism is explicitly non-Christian. There should be as much. I'm just setting the framework right now and right here of avoiding speaking on any Christianity as much as possible is the goal here. So let's see what we're getting to now. The first love. Okay, that's a whole episode. It was very short. Um, it's it's clear to me now that I can see what I'm doing is directing you toward where to go, and I didn't provide much substance on here, and rehashing anything is it's like I just set myself up for a dangerous position here. It was like, well, maybe now I'll be ready and down to divulge the details or something like that, where I want to, but no, I'm not going to. I need to get an idea of who the fuck my audience is first and foremost, and as much as I can, utilize common sense and things of that nature as to who my audience is. Um, that's that's a fucking how preposterous. That's a fucking absolutely preposterous and really very ridiculous thing. So fucking preposterous and ridiculous that like I literally basically have nothing else left to say. But aside from where others might be on this, and where other people might be on this kind of route on this route, on this kind of thing, where I'm consuming the stuff and then doing, like I just said, let's analyze a little bit and speculate on consuming doctrines, scripture, and books and studying something and then not putting anything out, and then how that can lead to a diluted mindset. That's just as useful for everybody as what use do I have, where I come down to it, where I get up to here with it, up to here. Imagine my hand is horizontal and I'm holding it up to my top of my forehead, and I'm saying, I've had it up to here with this, to say, well then basically none of it has any value or none of it's useful at all. I mean, that's also the state of the world, but then I'm basically speaking on the state of the world when I would say that's where everybody's leaving everybody. Every man for himself mentality, dog eat dog mentality. Just give a guy a few books and then leave him to it and let him off himself, basically, is the mindset that I'm seeing. If you want a man to hang himself, give him a rope. This is the rope. Anything spiritual or thinking that you know about it, unless you're doing it like me, and unless you're saying, well, I've consumed all of this, and then I'm speaking on all of this, and I'm providing only what I'm allowed to actually provide, and that is the basic surface layer of things. So, do I want to go into more deeper into the surface layer of things? Is like a total AI, artificial intelligence, robotic response to the whole thing, I guess. To say, do you want to take the red pill and see how far the rabbit hole goes? And it's like, well, it makes perfect sense to me the way that I did it so far, so yes. So by the time I come around to it, and by the time I say yes, then I'm good, basically. And then I don't have to worry about everybody else, because they can, and you can comment and start a thread and start a conversation with me, who's extrapolating the whole thing and unpacking the whole thing in a concise, digestible manner. That's it. That's it. That's enough. I've overloaded it. I've broke the internet. I'm out of here. And just another fucking sign of the times. World is doomed. Subscribe, like, share.